The fear and shame of asking who my father is, or wanting to have the answer to that question, or saying just like you did so beautifully, I wish I had that. This is how our minds can create stories that aren't reality. You know why? Because we don't have facts, and we don't have information, and we don't have the truth. This is a story this is what his doubt is based on. Were you with someone else?
She admitted she cheated on me that night. She was so messed up and partying all night, I'm guessing she didn't understand or remember that.
Ms. Owens is quite furious today. After having a beautiful teenage romance with Mr. Raines, she's kind of regretting the entire thing. Today, Mr. Raines claims that despite having a fairy tale romance with Ms. Owens, he's more than certain that he isn't the father of her child. Ms. Owens says this is news to her.
Ms. Owens, you say that after a whirlwind teenage romance and a brief marriage to Mr. Raines, he got you pregnant and then left you high and dry to raise your daughter, Jamie, on your own. You say the defendant is fully aware he is your daughter's father, and you intend to prove this today. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Lauren asks Ms. Owens why a man she claims she was deeply in love with when she was younger would abandon her and her baby without looking back. She says that Mr. Raines was a man who constantly lied to her, and to make things worse, he would cheat on her with other women.
Because he was a lying, cheating piece of trash.
Oh, say how you really feel. Explain.
I was actually 2 to 3 weeks pregnant when I went back to live with my parents when he left me. This is after him and 2 of his friends had come home about 1 o'clock in the morning with 3 girls.
After Ms. Owens calls him a cheat and states her reasons why, the judge asks Mr. Raines if he was a cheat while they were in a relationship. His reply leaves the courtroom speechless. He says he wasn't sure and that there was a chance he could have been cheating and also not be cheating. From that reply, you can see there is some truth to what Ms. Owens is saying.
Were you cheating, Mr. Raines?
Maybe. I was young back in those days. We were off and on. We were young, off and on, off and on. She got pregnant initially, and I married her because I was trying to do the right thing. She wanted to have a miscarriage. Again, after that, off and on, off and on, off and on. I got tired of it. It got old. And so she always wanted to go back home, so.
After finding out that her husband had been cheating, the same question was directed to Ms. Owens. She claims the only man she was in bed with at the time was Mr. Raines. As you would expect, Mr. Raines says that was a lie, and he knew she had other men she had been seeing. He claims the timeline in which Ms. Owens' daughter was conceived does not add up.
So you felt like your husband was cheating. I have to ask you, were you cheating too?
No, ma'am, I sure wasn't.
I don't know about that.
What makes you believe she was cheating, Mr. Raines?
She went home awful lot. It's just hard to believe, for me to believe that she was not cheating. I mean, again, here we are in court today over a child that's 27 years old, and the timeline don't add up.
Aside from saying that the timeline in which she conceived her child didn't add up, he also says that he wasn't around when she claimed to have been pregnant. But Ms. Owens insists that he's lying. She says when she was 7 months pregnant, Mr. Raines wrote to her saying that she wasn't pregnant, and it was all in her head. He then told her that even if she was pregnant, the child could not be his. Looks like he really doesn't want to be a father.
That's when I got pregnant. I got a letter from him, Your Honor, when I was 7 months pregnant, out to here, and he said, "You are not pregnant, it's all in your head. If you are pregnant, it is not mine. Do not give that baby my last name, and do not put me on the birth certificate."
No.
When Ms. Owens had her baby, she did not inform Mr. Raines. She tells he judge that once upon a time, she was so in love with Mr. Raines that she was willing to do anything he asked her to do. But when he started to treat her badly, all the love she had for him turned into hate, and that's why she didn't want him around her and her child when she gave birth in the hospital.
I did not want him around.
Oh.
I loved him so much when we got together that I would have done anything for him. And that love turned to pure hate. And I hated him as much as I loved him.
And the truth is hate really is just another form of love. When you hate somebody.
The story Mr. Raines is telling the judge no longer sounds accurate. He goes on to say that he got a letter stating that he had to pay child support for Ms. Owens' baby. He claims that some of his family members told him that the baby looked like him, so it was only right that he did the right thing and paid the child support bills. For some reason, the story sounds quite dubious.
You know, I had family saying she looks like you and stuff, and I just thought I was doing the right thing, Your Honor. It was not easy with Miss Clara to try to even see her, to have a relationship with her.
Mr. Raines, hold on, it's even getting more confusing because you are here in court today asserting that you are not
That's right.
Ms. Rose's biological father.
That's her fault.
And yet throughout her life, But throughout her life.
Apparently, Mr. Raines is not the only one who wasn't being truthful in the courtroom. Ms. Owens has left out some very vital information that was critical to solving the case. Ms. Owens had actually had conversation with her daughter where she mentioned that there was a chance that Mr. Raines might not be her biological father and that it could, in fact, be someone else.
In everything that you've said thus far in this courtroom, you left out that one very important conversation. So you did tell her that someone else could be her biological father.
I said there's a possibility.
So there
I was already pregnant and did not know it.
You did? Okay, whatever.
She was due the 18th of July.
There was only one way forward to determine who has been lying and who had been telling the truth. The DNA results were in, and it's time to see who the real father of the child was.
Mr. Raines, you are the father. You are her father.
I'm glad. I tried to be a father to her, Your Honor.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
Ms. Fisher claims that her second child definitely belongs to Mr. Meyer. She says Mr. Meyer abandoned her and is now demanding being the father of her second child after fathering her first. Mr. Meyer says he's confident that he isn't the child's father because he knows that Ms. Meyer had intimate relationships with other men while they were together.
Ms. Fisher, you say you thought you found the perfect older man to start a relationship and family with, but after having your first child and getting pregnant again, you claim he abandoned you and denied he fathered your second child, Xavier. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Meyer, you contend Ms. Fisher was a serial cheater who had numerous liaisons with different men during your relationship.
Now, after Ms. Fisher and Mr. Meyer had their first son together, they started to live together for about 3 years. Around the 4th year, Ms. Fisher found out she was going to be pregnant with another child, and she informed Mr. Meyer. As soon as she told him, he decided he didn't want to have anything to do with Ms. Fisher and disappeared into the air.
After having our first son together, we lived together for about 3 years. We found out that after the new year, we were going to have a second son. Him knowing that, he decided he didn't want anything to do with me. I ended up living with another family member, just to better our lives. We were doing a switch off, back and forth, watching our son together, and after that, we got into a lot of disagreements, just arguing a lot.
Mr. Meyer claims that he knew that Ms. Fisher was having several men in his house. He goes on to give instances where he would come home, would find some of his things wrongly placed, and in extreme cases, find several people on his bed.
She's cheated on me multiple times. I came home, I found my mattress flipped over. I came home, I found multiple people in my bedroom.
I want to be clear too, you all were in a relationship.
Yes, Your Honor.
You say this is your second child, right, Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
So you have an older child.
Yes, I have a 3-year-old son who is almost 4 years old this year.
It is time to go down memory lane, and Mr. Meyer was asked how he reacted when Ms. Fisher told him she was pregnant with his child. He already had his doubts from the onset that the baby may not have been his. The doubts about the baby and the fact that he knew she had been sleeping with other men were driving them apart.
She explained to me and told me she was pregnant. At the time before that, we were kind of on and off. We were fighting constantly. I don't think we were really together at that time. I know she was with other guys. I really didn't think the kid was mine at all. There was a chance the kid was mine. Dates didn't add up when she told me. She constantly changed her due dates. Nothing made sense. It added up.
These two continue to argue at the top of their voices, throwing accusations right and left. Judge Lauren decides to step in and asks Mr. Meyer if he has any proof of the accusations he has leveled against Ms. Fisher. Mr. Fisher says the only proof he has is that one of his neighbors once told him that they had seen a guy jump out of the window of his house when he got back from work.
As I said, all right, my neighbor told me some guys crawled out the window. Who was that? Who crawled out the window?
I would like to know myself.
Oh, well, you were there, obviously. I mean, the thing that you made it up.
Wait a minute, your neighbor told you someone was crawling?
My neighbor said, hey, is your house broken into? I'm like, I don't know, I can go check and think. Why would my house be broken? He said, I seen somebody crawling out of your window. I said, really? So I go run over to my house. Nothing's gone or nothing like that.
The window situation wasn't the only piece of evidence he has for Judge Lauren. He goes on to mention another situation that indicates Ms. Meyer had been with another man. One time when he was feeling a bit sick and under the weather, he called Ms. Fisher to come pick him up from work, but for some reason, he couldn't get a hold of her. By the time she arrived to pick him up, he claimed he could see bodily fluids that indicated she had just finished having intercourse with someone.
I'm calling and calling and calling. She doesn't answer the phone. I'm upset. I start walking. She comes to pick me up. She's clearly had sex with somebody.
Clearly?
Yes, visibly. She had something in her hair. It was not gel and it was not shampoo.
Okay, you believe there were bodily fluids in her
Yes,
hair?
for use of better words, yes.
I mean, we haven't heard that testimony.
In Ms. Fisher's defense, she says that Mr. Meyer was one of those men who knew how to make up things in his imagination. He was going to say and do anything just so he wouldn't have to take responsibility as the father of his children. She goes on to give multiple situations where Mr. Meyer denied being the father of the baby.
He didn't want to show up to the birth for Xavier. He didn't want to sign the birth certificate, which forced me to give my second son my last name after his first son has his last name.
Find his real father.
1 month later, I show up to his doorstep after I honked outside, come outside, take the baby out of the car. I physically make this man hold his own child for the first time, thinking that hopefully he would feel some sort of guilt in his heart.
The atmosphere is getting too heated for the tantrums that were coming from both sides. The only thing that could smooth the air was the DNA results.
Mr. Meyer, you are the father.
Do you have anything you would like to say to your son?
I just feel terrible right now, and I will be taking care of him.
Would it be okay if he saw Xavier in my chambers?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Meyer, would you like to hold your son?
Yes, please.
There was a lot of emotion tied to this particular case. Miss Stockley is in court because she felt so much guilt and it had started to get to her heart. She claimed the guilt was there as a result of her claiming the wrong man to be her daughter's biological father for over 23 years. She wants to correct her deeds from the past, and she's hoping the new man she believes to be her father will accept her daughter with open arms.
Stokely, you say you feel pain and guilt in your heart for claiming the wrong man was your daughter, Waikia's biological father, for the past 23 years. You are here to right your wrong and now prove to the defendant that he is her dad. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Tucker, you and your daughter Candace say there is no way today's DNA will reveal.
Judge Lauren goes straight to Ms. Stockley's daughter and asks her how she first heard about Mr. Tucker, who her mother is now claiming to be her real dad. She says she had known about his name for as long as she could remember. In her case, she had always known there was a possibility that another man could be her father, but she never knew who it could be.
Well, as long as I could remember, I always heard about Mr. Tucker. I always heard that it was a possibility that another guy might be my father. Even before I knew what a possibility was, this how long ago this was. All my life, I heard about this guy.
Well, I always knew Mr. Tucker could have been Waikia's father. At the time, I was in a relationship with my ex that was living with me, but I always knew he could have been her father.
Mrs. Stockley's daughter claims she could remember back when she was just 8 years old when she met Mr. Tucker, but at the time she didn't know who he was. All she could remember was that he told her his name and gave her some money. But as soon as she saw him in the courtroom, she felt in her heart that Mr. Tucker was her father. She didn't want to get too emotional, but you could see it in her eyes.
When you see him, do you remember him being the guy from when you were 8 years old?
No, I don't.
You don't? So you've bumped into him again now and you're just talking to him?
No, I actually felt it when I came in the door. When I seen him sitting there and we started talking, and it's my father. And I felt it the whole, well, I don't want to get too.
Well, Mr. Tucker had another daughter, and she was with him in the courtroom. She claims she knew about Ms. Stockley's daughter when she was 8 years old, but was too young to make sense of what her daddy told her. What she couldn't wrap her head around was why Ms. Stockley waited 23 years to tell Mr. Tucker that he had a daughter.
Completely confused. My whole thing is, I did hear about her when she was 8. I was with my dad at that time, and then I did meet her again, but it's just like, she's saying that she's so sure that this is my dad's child, but why wait 23 years? And like, it's basically like, I will miss out on the whole sister. I've been around all my other sisters and brothers.
Do you believe that Miss Stokely is your sister?
No, because my dad, he loved his children, and if he had a possible child.
So how did we even get here? Ms. Stokely claims that she had been living with her ex-boyfriend for some time. When she wanted to move out, she was held back by a snowstorm and got stuck with Mr. Tucker. And just like that, they got intimate with each other. It must have been one cozy snowstorm.
I wasn't sure. I got stuck in a snowstorm with Mr. Tucker.
Okay.
And I had sex with both males, but I don't know if I went in the snowstorm pregnant. I got pregnant in the
Or if you
snowstorm.
came out of the snowstorm
I'm
pregnant.
not sure. Yes, Your Honor. I'm not sure how I went in.
Okay, but the bottom line is that's when you were with Mr. Tucker.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Tucker, do you remember this snowstorm?
Yes, I do.
After doing the math, the window of conception showed that there was a chance that Mr. Tucker could actually be the father of Ms. Stockley's child. But the problem now was that Mr. Tucker wasn't the only one she was sleeping with. Like she said, she was living with her ex-boyfriend at the time, and she was also very intimate with him.
Were you with any other men during that time?
Yes, I was, Your Honor. I was with my ex that was my boyfriend at the time.
Okay, wait. So if the window points to Mr. Tucker, then why wouldn't you tell him that he potentially had a beautiful daughter before a couple months ago?
Well, but when I was pregnant with Wakia, after I had Wakia, we all live in the same neighborhood. I seen Mr. Tucker many a time.
Another revelation popped up in the courtroom. Miss Stockley never told Mr. Tucker that he could be the father to her child, even though she was always seeing him in passing. But she mentioned the fact that when she was in Mr. Tucker's neighborhood, his family relatives would always refer to her daughter as their niece, asking where she was and that they wanted to see her.
See him like in passing, because like I said, he would come to my neighborhood, I would go to his neighborhood, I saw an auntie live on his block. His sisters, they would say to me, where my niece at? Where my little niece at? Where my niece at?
His family members would say, where my little niece at?
Yes.
No, Your Honor, her mom, her friends, everybody in her neighborhood, when I be going to work, they was like, Willie, Zakia, you know that.
Wakia.
The courtroom has seen enough of Mr. Tucker and Ms. Stokely's drama about who the biological father of her daughter is. It is finally time to reveal the truth and put an end to the endless argument.
Mr. Tucker, you are the father.
All right.
This is why I wake up in the morning and I cannot wait to come, because I want you to stand in this courtroom and I want you to point at Wakia and I want you to say the line